We all have our own personal mountains we want to climb. For some, that's a figurative statement. For others, it's a figurative and also quite literal statement. I'm in that latter group. I have my sights set on climbing one of the most beautiful mountains in the world, one that calls to me. It's going to take several years of training. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be so worth it. It's going to provide the opportunity to make our communities better. That's something that's been calling to me too. It's going to take several years of raising awareness. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be so worth it. It's funny how things in life come together. The paths of my figurative and literal mountains intersected somewhere. And that is with a pair of sandals that I bought in 2011 and were broken in by walking hundreds of miles across Europe for 3 months. From the Scottish Highlands to Istanbul and everywhere in between. From there, the sandals and I became inseparable when it came to traveling. Together we walked around Alaska, Europe again, the American South, and across the stretches of every spring, summer, and fall into 2017. That year, though, they finally tore at the seams and broke. As I went through my checklist and packed for a new trip to trek to Mount Everest, I thought it might be nice to bring them on one last go-around, to put on while resting in the villages along the trail at night. No real walking around. But real estate and weight in the backpack for a trip like this is nothing to take lightly. Everything adds up, and these were not on my checklist of 116 items that I had to carry. I stood and stared at them, sitting on the floor, for a while. But at the last second, sentimentality won, and I fastened them into the pack. The sandals headed out for one last hurrah. It was the night of America's Thanksgiving when we returned from trekking 85 miles to the mountain and back to the energetic streets of Kathmandu. It felt great to get out of and stay out of my hiking boots, so I put the sandals on as my friends and I headed out looking for Christmas gifts and dinner. As I walked through the neighborhood of Tamel, I noticed this man from across the street start beelining it towards me. When he got to me, he said that he had noticed my sandals were broken. I mean, through a crowd of moving people, lanes of moving people. He wanted to fix them. He was a shoe repairman. As a Westerner, you get hounded by people all day long, and it can be tiresome. You develop a look, an attitude, a routine of being able to just brush by them and basically let them know it ain't happening. But this man did not relent. He walked alongside me and begged to fix my sandals for blocks. Finally, I said, okay. I mean, I looked at him. I think I finally, at some point, turned and actually looked at him. Instead of trying to continue to walk, I turned, I looked into his eyes, and I saw a man who needed help. And I thought, I can give this guy his next meal, at least, or more. So we pulled off the main drag, and I sat on a stoop while he went to work, pulling out a spool of thread and a needle out of his knapsack. The speed and accuracy with which his fingers worked on my sandals told me that he had been telling the truth about being a shoe repairman. He said his name was Dharmveer.
Hello, my friend.
Hello.
Good morning.
He was from India and moved to Kathmandu with his wife and children to escape his country's caste system, to try and eke out a better living among the Nepali people. However, on the 3-day bus journey to their new home, someone had stolen his shoebox, complete with supplies that he'd built up over the course of time. When he arrived in Nepal, he had nothing to work with. As he told me his story, I could see in his eyes that this was a man full of love for his family, full of truth, and in need of help. When he finished fixing my sandals, I paid him the equivalent of $30 American in Nepali rupees. All the cash I had in my pocket. But this would feed his family for nearly a week. I asked him how much a new shoebox and supplies would cost, and he said around $300 American. And he needed that to get back to having a daily work routine. to have a spot where people saw him every day, where he could have repeat customers, to count on a daily wage. He began to cry when he expressed how much he didn't want to beg for the work. I felt for him. He then invited me back to his home to meet his family and have tea. So I accepted. They lived in a shantytown part of the city, a 10 by 10 concrete room with a makeshift door. It wasn't much, it wasn't safe, but it was what they had. It was home. I sat on a blanket, played with his children, and talked to him and his wife as she made us chai. We all sat and drank the tea together, and by the time I left, I was determined to get Dharmveer his new shoebox, to get him on his way, best I could. As I waited to board my flight out of Nepal, I wrote about this experience and posted it to Facebook. By the time I landed in the Middle East about 5 hours later to change flights, the response to help Dharmveer was overwhelming. A few weeks later, I was able to send him the money for a new shoebox, plus more for almost a month's worth of food. He and his family couldn't believe it. It was safe to say the sandals went out with one special trip indeed. The whole experience of trekking to high altitude and then helping Dharmveer and his family changed my life. I had to do more.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
During my training for trekking to Everest Base Camp, I created a great template for myself in regards to preparation. I did everything I could think of to complete the trek safely and successfully. That meant coming up with blueprints for working out, changing my diet, creating a patient and peaceful mind, researching the culture of Nepal, the altitude, the gear, the climate zones, the mountains, the culture of the United Arab Emirates where I'd be changing flights, and more. What I came up with worked great for me, so I repeated the process 2 years later when I began preparing for my summit attempt of Mount Kilimanjaro. Only this time, I added a new element. I wanted to dedicate my climb in Africa to a worthy cause, but one that mattered to Tanzania, the home of Kilimanjaro. I wanted to give back to the place that was going to be giving me so much. I tell you, experiencing the mountain and the culture, it's a supremely enriching spiritual experience that is hard to explain. Basically, I get something, they get something. I can't not do that. I learned that child trafficking was a huge issue there. Upon further researching, I found an organization called Lumos who helped aid in curbing that, and they had offices in Tanzania and neighboring Kenya. I reached out to their offices and explained my idea of dedicating my climb to Lumos and that I wanted to raise awareness about it, get donations sent to them, and help at least one kid from ending up in a terrible place. I gotta say, Lumos was pretty excited about the venture right away. I set up a Facebook fundraiser with a modest goal of $500. Upon sharing that, I soon had to change the goal 4 more times. They just all started donating. $50 here, $25 there, $100 here, and it started adding up. And I thought, this is so beautiful, this is wonderful. The main point is that I was able to help make a difference in some children's lives somewhere and successfully summit Kilimanjaro. I have to do something more because I can. So what does that mean exactly? Denali, the tallest peak in all of North America. Denali is one of the most beautiful things I've ever set my eyes on. But Denali takes a lot of preparation to get ready for. It's not just an elevation and altitude, but also in technical climbing skills. To properly train for a safe and successful summit of Denali, it's imperative that I train on very specific climbs. Huayna Potosi in Bolivia, Aconcagua in Argentina, Mount Rainier in Washington State, Peak Lenin in Kyrgyzstan, and then Denali. 5 locations, 5 causes. Except, wait. There's a really big place that's been feeding my soul this whole entire time, and it's time I rose awareness for that. Home. There are people and things in the Utica area, in Oneida County, New York State, that deserve attention too, that deserve help. So each climb abroad will also be paired with local cause at home. Life's a trip, and this is going to be a great one. Let's take it together. Namaste. Namaste.
Namaste. So, how's everything?
I'm great. I'm talking to you.
Okay, I really missing for you, but long time ago we not see each other, and you are supporting for my shoebox, and this last time you are supporting for my children tuition class. So this is really so much.
And he'd have thought in a million years that his children were going to go to school because he knew he would never be able to send them to school. So when I get to hear his voice about how they're doing and how they're learning this and learning that, and they're just in love with being educated, and it's going to put them somewhere else other than on the streets and begging for the rest of their lives.
Please, you are telling your English like name, so she can spelling of the letter, you know.
Brian.
Brian का क्या कितने अक्षर होंगे?
B R I A N.
We are all tethered together in this world, in this life. That is just the way it is. There are other Dharmveers out there, and there are Dharmveers right here at home. It's time to raise peak awareness for our communities and those we love, and those we don't even know we love yet. It's time to wake every day and rise for a reason.
Many times asking for me, Papa, can I possible to go to school? Then I will say, we see, we no promise, because never know what happening in the life, you know. So because I will just possible to give food, but not possible to like give education. So they want always pray for God, and they will tell him, please God, tell for my sponsor, for my father, and then we are start to go to school. So always like dreaming, like dream, you know. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Life's a trip. Let's take it together.